Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk presented by Forefathers Organics. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, here for the Batavia Daily and Livingston County News. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, along with all the comings and goings from Orchard Park, thanks to our friends at Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
All right, finally, we're here. Ravens week, the divisional round, where the Bills have really set up shop, I should say, over the past several years. They haven't been able to come away with a victory, but this has been the round that the Bills have made their home over the past 4 seasons. They've fallen the past 3 years. We'll see if they can get it done this week. A tall task put in front of the Bills, going up against who I view as the most talented team in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens, what they can do offensively, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and then what this defense has transformed into under first-year defensive coordinator, forgive me for his first name, last name, but they've certainly done a great job over there in Baltimore, and they set themselves up for what would be a big win for the Ravens as well in this one. But let's get to some updates from Bills practice here on Wednesday. It was a walkthrough for the Bills in Orchard Park. The jumbo tight end, Alex Anderson, one of the concerns heading into the week, a calf injury for him. He was limited today. The Bills have used the extra O-lineman more than any team in the NFL this season. So it's not your run-of-the-mill swing offensive lineman. Alex Anderson very much involved in what the Bills do. He was on the field plenty this past week against the Denver Broncos. And he's not only used in the running game, which he's really helped vault this running game to new levels. You saw it last year with David Edwards and what the Bills did with the jumbo tight end. But Alex Anderson has really fit into that role seamlessly. But they also pass out of that set when he's in the game. So it really keeps defenses off balance. Without him in the game this week, that would hamper the offense. I'm not saying it would be a huge loss, but a loss nonetheless. It would be interesting to see who would fulfill his duties if Anderson is to miss the game on Sunday. I think the top 2 candidates there are Tylon Grable and Ryan Vandermark. But I think right now, there's still optimism that Anderson will suit up for this game. Like I said, limited during today's walkthrough. It's a calf injury for Alex Anderson. He did return to the game this past week with that calf injury, so certainly some optimism that he'll be able to suit up this week. And more than optimism for kick returner, punt returner Brandon Codrington, who missed this past week's game against the Denver Broncos. Sean McDermott stating during his pre-practice presser on Wednesday that Codrington will be good to go this week with that hamstring injury that he sustained 2 weeks ago against the New England Patriots. Codrington, as I've mentioned several times before, top 5 in the league in punt return average. I know that we saw Khalil Shakir do well in that role this past week, caught all 4 punts that were punted his way with no problem. And he also had that one shifty return that he gained some yardage on and gave a little flex afterwards. So certainly talent there with Shakir, but Codrington has been an effective piece for the Bills special teams unit throughout the season. And I don't think there's any doubt he's good to go. He will be placed back into that role this weekend. Another injury to talk about on the Bills side, Ray Davis, still in concussion protocol. He's, I think, unlikely to play this week. At least I thought so prior to today's practice, which the media didn't get a chance to watch. But Bills play-by-play announcer Chris Brown revealing that Davis in stage 4 of the concussion protocol. He was marked limited on the team's injury report, so that's certainly a positive sign that a player who sustained a concussion on Sunday already able to get out there and participate with his teammates, albeit in a limited fashion. If Davis isn't able to go this week, I think you'll see Frank Gore Jr. off the practice squad, or at least there's a chance of that happening. He would be the next man up in this situation. But that limited tag on Ray Davis today, and Chris Brown saying that he's in the stage 4 of the concussion protocol makes me a bit more optimistic than I was if you would have asked me at the outset of practice. And then on the other side, on the Ravens side of things, Zay Flowers, the talented wide receiver, Pro Bowl wide receiver, he's gone for over 1,000 yards this season. He did not practice today with a right knee injury, and Baltimore head coach John Harbaugh said earlier this week that kind of in we'll see mode with Zay Flowers. I'm sure that's in coach speak day to day. But he also mentioned that Flowers won't have to practice in order to suit up. I know a lot of teams like to see their players get out there at least one day during the week if they are to suit up for the game. But, Harbaugh, I almost said McDermott, Harbaugh already saying that Flowers would be able to play even if he doesn't practice this week. But the question is, what level of Zay Flowers are you getting at this point? He was out last week. And if he's if he's missing practice to start the week, we'll see what his status is on Thursday, but already missing practice here on Wednesday. It leaves you to question what level of player Zay Flowers will be if he is able to suit up come Sunday night against the Bills. I'm not sure you're getting a player even close to full strength, maybe just a decoy out there if he's able to play a small share of snaps, if he is able to get out there with that knee injury. I think he plays a similar role to Amari Cooper in the way that he's a tough matchup for opposing defenses. He's a player opposing defenses have to account for. I'm not sure he really is an engine of this offense that is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. You have two players like that. Losing Zay Flowers isn't going to kill your chances, but I think he's a valuable piece in that sense. He's a matchup disadvantage for a lot of opposing defenses, and he can be tough on defenses in that regard. I think if you don't see Flowers this week, you'll see a lot of Isaiah Likely, a lot of tight ends, really. Mark Andrews started the season slow, but he has double-digit touchdowns now. So I think you'll see a lot of Isaiah Likely, a lot of Mark Andrews. And like I alluded to before, this Baltimore offense outside of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, they really like to spread the ball around in the passing game. They like to get guys involved that you aren't accustomed to seeing on a weekly basis. So I don't think there's, similar to how the Bills kind of like to spread it around and not give the defense anybody to focus on, the Ravens play it a similar way offensively, and that makes them a mighty difficult matchup on top of what they have at the head of the snake in Jackson and Henry. I think the Bills have an advantage in pass coverage this week, particularly with Zay Flowers being out. You have those three players in the middle of your defense returning this week: Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson. Those are three key pieces at that second level, and I think that's going to help you in communication, getting those running backs out of the backfield, guarding those tight ends in pass coverage. I think that's a big boon for the Bills' defense this week. But Zay Flowers will have to check his status as the week continues. All right, that's it for injuries. Now, thoughts from the locker room today from One Bills Drive. Really, the theme for this week for the Bills is putting the past away and in a sense, forgetting about that 35-10 defeat in week 4, a poor display put on by the Bills, really on both sides of the ball, allowing that 87-yard touchdown run from Derrick Henry on the first play from scrimmage for Baltimore, and then only putting up 10 points. The crazy trick play that Joe Brady dialed up for the Bills offense with the end around and the toss back to Josh Allen before he got crushed and hurt his back. So a lot of regrettable moments in that game. And Josh Allen was asked about it today, and he just simply said he thought his team learned a lot from that. Learned a lot from that matchup, as a lot of lessons were learned through the failures that you saw from the Bills during that game on both sides of the ball. And I think the theme for this week for the Bills was really rounded out well by Terrell Bernard's speech to the team that Daquan Jones and Von Miller revealed to us today at Wednesday's practice at One Bills Drive. Terrell Bernard citing the late Greek philosopher Heraclitus and his man in the river story, and how a man that goes in the river and returns to that river is not the same man that he was the first time he entered that river, nor is the river the same as when the man entered the first time. And I think that rings true in this situation. I think the Bills were a different team in week 4. Not only were they missing those 3 key players, one of them being Terrell Bernard, who gave this speech, but just overall in terms of Joe Brady's stamp on this offense, the balance that they've shown on that side of the ball, and how they've evolved on the defensive side of the ball as well, getting Matt Milano back into the fold, Von Miller really upping his game as the season has gone along, and what Christian Benford has transformed into this season on the outside. I think he's playing at just a phenomenal level right now, and although he's been playing really phenomenally all year, I think as the season has gone on, Benford has just gotten better and better and better, as have the safeties at the back end. I think there's been some slip-ups from Taylor Rapp lately, but I think you've seen him and Hamlin grow more comfortable beside one another, and I think those all are changes that the Bills can use to their advantage in this second matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, that they're hoping to put forth a much, 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 much better performance than they did during that 25-point defeat in the first matchup this season. Daquan Jones, along with citing Bernard's speech, he also spoke on just the return of those 3 players that I mentioned earlier, Bernard, Johnson, and Milano. He said, no doubt it's going to make a difference for this defense this week. And I think that goes without saying. You get a captain back, two former All-Pros for that matter, Milano being a former first-teamer, Johnson being a former second-teamer. That's just going to work wonders for this defense in this matchup. And I think primarily against Lamar Jackson, you need those 3 guys to diagnose the play pre-snap. You need them to read and react post-snap at a high level if you hope to slow him down. And if you look at the last playoff matchup, I know it was a totally different Ravens team, different offensive coordinator, different personnel in terms of the roster, but a 17-3 win for the Bills over Baltimore. And Lamar Jackson just 9 carries for 34 yards rushing in that game, and Matt Milano played a big role in that. Second on the team with 7 tackles. He also had 2 passes defensed in that game. If you can get something close to prime Matt Milano in this game, and for this stretch run for that matter, but particularly in this game against Lamar Jackson, I think that's going to put you in a great position to slow down this high-powered offense. He could be that wild card for this team this time around, not to mention Bernard and Johnson straddling him in that Bills defensive backfield. Spencer Brown, we spoke with after practice today as well. Some comments on the Bills' home field advantage in this game. He wants it as cold as possible and as weather impacted as possible, does Spencer Brown. He said he wants it cold, 40-mile-per-hour winds, 3 feet of snow, and some Bills fans bringing up on Twitter, I'm not so sure how much that favors the Bills in this one with a big-bodied running back in Derrick Henry. Some business decisions could be made by Bills defenders having to not only track down but get in front of and stop that mass of a man in the open field. So I'm not sure the Bills will want it that cold and that snowy, but hey, Spencer Brown says he wants it that way. He mentioned the Bills fans bring the energy, and it makes the Bills stadium one of the best environments in the NFL, especially come playoff time. And I think that rings true, having been there the past few years and witnessing what that crowd can do. I think that's going to be a big factor in this game. You look back at that first matchup, and you look at the Ravens' home field advantage, that game being in prime time early in the season. The Ravens were looking for a big win in that one. They did the blackout in the stadium, shut off the lights for introductions, and from the minute that game started, it was all Ravens. So I think flipping that switch back to the Bills side and having them have a little bit of home field advantage, having Ryan Fitzpatrick out there for the pregame right here, right now, and everything for that matter, the old just pump up intro. I can't get the words out, but you know what I'm saying. I think he's going to take his shirt off, show the chest hair, show the back hair he mentioned on his podcast, Fitz and Wit, I think it's called. So it's really going to be a great environment at Highmark Stadium. It's going to be a lot of tension brewing, but a lot of excitement as well. And I expect the Bills to take advantage this time around rather than kind of let that environment get the best of them as it has in previous years. You look at how Sean McDermott has loosened up this year. That has spread throughout the entire Bills locker room. And I just think this team is loose. I think they're ready to win this round. And I think this is the year that they're going to get it done. No predictions yet, but I do think the Bills are going to get it done. I'll give you my score prediction coming up later this week. And finally, leading us into our next topic out of the break, where we thank Forefathers Organics, Terrell Bernard was asked about the previous defeats that the Bills have sustained in the divisional round and if the team is feeling any pressure. And Spencer Brown also commented on this, but the overarching thought amongst the Bills locker room seems to be that there's really no pressure felt. And I know that that's the obvious answer, but I think for the reason being that this is an entirely new team this year to what we've seen the past several years. I think that's why, to use the phrase again, it rings true in this sense. So much changeover from last year and really the past 3 years and those past 3 divisional round defeats, the leadership changing really in the hands of Josh Allen and Terrell Bernard now and that leadership council. A lot has changed for this team since those 3 divisional round defeats. Von Miller mentioning today that he wasn't even around for all of them. So I think this is a new team. They aren't feeling that pressure this year due to the looseness in that locker room and also just due to the changeover in that locker room and the fact that a lot of these players haven't felt that loss in that stadium in the divisional round. And we'll see how it works out. This weekend, it's sure to be an exciting game. And we'll be back with many more podcasts. Before we continue this podcast, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
Sorry, looking down at a comment on my phone. The next topic I want to discuss here on the podcast, really a big picture topic heading into this game before we get to game breakdowns on subsequent podcasts throughout the week. The main question I have going into this game, and a lot of people asking it amongst the media sphere and really amongst both fan bases, who has more pressure to win in this game? Is it the Bills? Is it the Ravens? Or is it Lamar Jackson? Or is it Sean McDermott? I'm not sure so much of the pressure is on Josh Allen. I think more of it is on McDermott in the Bills' case. But as far as Lamar Jackson is concerned, the playoff failures that he's experienced over the years, not only the failures, to couple that with the MVPs, at some point, you have to kind of justify those MVPs with some playoff success. They reached the AFC Championship game last year. I thought the Ravens were the best team in football. They lose that game to the Chiefs. The Chiefs go on to win the Super Bowl. If they're to drop this game to the Bills in the divisional round, a team they've already handled this season, I think questions run rampant about Lamar Jackson. And is he a choke in the playoffs? Can he perform come postseason time? Because it just hasn't seemed to be the case leading into this season. I know he had a solid performance in week 1. He was really buoyed by the performance from Derrick Henry, over 100 yards rushing in the first half. Henry just dominant in that game, and it's really hard not to go off when you're as talented of a player as a Lamar Jackson when you have a running game cooking like that. Josh Allen has benefited from James Cook running the football throughout the season, and you've seen Jackson do it with Henry as well. I think a good example of that was the Pittsburgh Steelers game. But on McDermott's side, you look at his own playoff failures and the way that he's been a part of so many disastrous finishes. And not only that, but the defense hasn't shown up in a lot of these games. It hasn't been the Bills losing close games 17-14. It's been them losing games that go back and forth down the stretch when Josh Allen puts the defense in position to get a stop and they just can't do it. And a lot of that has been put at the feet of Sean McDermott, and rightfully so. He's got his fingerprints all over this defense, all over this team for that matter. And when you consistently come up short in the big moments, the head coach is going to be a lightning rod in these situations. And Sean McDermott has been the epitome of a lightning rod over the past few years, particularly leading in to this season. But I think he's won a lot of people over with the way the Bills have performed throughout the course of the year, the expectations with which they entered the season, and how they've kind of turned those on their head and outperformed those expectations in a transitional year. I think he's turned the tide in that conversation a little bit. But if they lose in this divisional round, I think it'll be right back to square one with the fan base. I don't think there's room for nuance amongst Bills Mafia when it comes to Sean McDermott. I think it's cut and dry. They need him to win in this divisional round if they are going to be completely sold on their head coach. And I guess there's some merit to that. I certainly don't view it that way, but I know a lot of people do. And I certainly can't fault them for that, because when you go 3 straight years losing in the same round after an AFC championship berth in that 2020 season, I think it was 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I think I have the playoff history pulled up here. Yes, the 2020 season. You have no upward trajectory. It's just kind of leveled off. It's plateaued, and I think there is room for concern. Can Sean McDermott get this team to the next level? I personally believe that he can do it, but until he does do it, until this team does get to that next level and back to that AFC championship game and perhaps beyond, there's still going to be questions, and rightfully so. My question is, do Josh Allen and Joe Brady deserve any criticism if things go awry this weekend? And that kind of leads me to another question. What will it take for Bills fans not to freak out on Sean McDermott if the Bills are to lose this game? I don't want to manifest a loss in any sense of the imagination, but I think Josh Allen and Joe Brady are pretty much absolved from criticism in this game, and not only due to the lightning rod that is Sean McDermott, but the way that the offense has carried this team this season. The defense has struggled through some tough moments. The offense has been really a consistent producer for this team, and Josh Allen, a big reason for that, obviously, an MVP season. But Joe Brady and what he's installed, as I mentioned before, with the balance on this offense, and not to mention Aaron Kromer. I just think that those two, Josh Allen and Joe Brady, are going to be absolved from criticism from the fan base and probably the media alike. All of it is going to be heaped on Sean McDermott's doorstep. His feet will be held to the fire if the Bills lose a shootout. The only saving grace that I think this coaching staff can have, Sean McDermott particularly, in a losing effort, is if it's a loss in a very low-scoring game and the defense comes up with big stops and the offense just can't get it together. I think then there may be room for Bills fans just to throw their hands up in the air and say, listen, it is what it is. The Ravens beat us in this one. I don't think that that's likely that you'll see that reaction, but I think the only chance of that happening is if this is a low-scoring game. Now, I don't think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and like I said, I'll give you my score prediction later this week. And I also already said that I think the Bills will win, but you have to consider all possibilities in this line of work, and certainly the prospect of a Bills loss does not have me looking forward to Monday morning. A few more topics here. Sean McDermott touched on how the Bills will simulate Lamar Jackson in practice this week. It's a tall task for any team to simulate a player like that. His throwing ability, his running ability, his off-script ability, and just his ability to be a nightmarish threat for opposing defenses. Now, the Bills did sign practice squad quarterback Anthony Brown today. He is a dual threat quarterback that was on the Bills practice squad earlier this season. Actually saw some time during one of the Bills preseason games, and he does have some history with the Baltimore Ravens. I think earlier last season, I think it was, he was on their team's practice squad, so some familiarity with what they do offensively. Maybe he can bring that to the meeting rooms as well, but I think his primary function, which Sean McDermott touched on during his press conference, is he's going to be that dual threat practice squad quarterback mimicking Lamar Jackson throughout the week of practice. I asked Sean McDermott kind of tongue-in-cheek earlier today, will you put Micah Hyde back there to mimic Lamar Jackson? It feels like every time that there's an opportunity for someone to be inputted into a new role, Micah Hyde's name is brought up, so I figured I'd do the honors today. But Anthony Brown, I think, a perfect fit for that. as perfect as you can get, at least. No one, like I said, is going to probably even get close to mimicking Lamar Jackson, but a player that Sean McDermott said that will keep the Bills defense honest. You have to honor his ability to run. You have to honor his ability to throw. And I think that's going to be effective for the Bills scout team, as effective as it can be during a week where they're walking through on Wednesday. They'll likely go through a lighter practice on Friday. Really have one real practice on Thursday with not much hitting, not much full speed action. So Anthony Brown signed to the practice squad, and McDermott said good luck when trying to mimic Lamar Jackson, but Brown will try to take that luck and run with it and try to do the Bills a service this week as they prepare for this tough matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. Last topic when it comes to the Ravens in terms of their personnel, Derrick Henry, the other side of the coin here. It's Lamar Jackson. It's Derrick Henry. Can you stop those two? If you can't, you have no chance to win. And it's going to come down to, I know this is a cliche. It's something that I hate when people say it. Tackling is a big deal in every football game that's ever been played. I don't need to hear that tackling is important, but not simply tackling Derrick Henry the way that you tackle Derrick Henry. You need to wrap up. You need to hold on. You need to wait for others to rally to the football. It may not always come with one player getting the job done. In fact, it probably won't often come with one player getting the job done. We saw his stiff arm on Minkah Fitzpatrick this past week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sure he's got one in store for a Bills defender or two this week. So you have to rally to the football. You have to diagnose pre-snap. I thought that was the problem on the 87-yard run. You had Patrick Ricard streaking across the line of scrimmage, coming on that trap play, just blowing up the linebacker at the second level and opening the door. I think it was the linebacker at the second level and opening the door for Henry to romp all the way down the field. You have to know what's coming as best as you can. You have to rally to the football. And then, of course, you have to finish the tackle or at least hang on for others to come help you. You can't have these shoulder tackles bouncing off and trying to hit them with force. You have to wrap up. You have to wait for others to get to the football. I'm interested to see who the Bills will have up on the defensive line. I thought this past week Jordan Phillips didn't have his best game, particularly against the run. There wasn't a lot of running for the Denver Broncos, but I thought Phillips didn't really control his matchups up front. So we'll see if the Bills go back with him this week or if they make the rookie Dwayne Carter active. Unfortunately for Eli Anku, a fan favorite, he's been up and down all season, and he got released from the team with Anthony Brown coming to the practice squad. I wonder if Brown will just be a one-week thing if the Bills are able to advance, and we'll see Anku back on the roster next week. But I guess you got to take care of business first. Interested to see what they do on the defensive line and how they try to combat Derrick Henry and company. There's also plenty of cards this Bills defensive coaching staff can play, namely the primary two, Dorian Williams and that three linebacker set. They did that about 25% of the time against the Ravens the first time around. There's been a lot of clamoring amongst the fan base for Williams to see more time. I think with Matt Milano performing the way that he did this past week, I think those discussions were quieted a little bit, but I think they're starting to ramp back up with this matchup growing closer and closer, because you're not going to get it done, like I said, with one-on-one tackling Derrick Henry. You need more hats to rally to the football, and I think one way of slowing him down and getting other players to the football is having those or another linebacker in the game, and of course that would be Dorian Williams, who finished the regular season, I believe, is the Bills' leading tackler. And the other one is Cole Bishop. Do you insert him for Damar Hamlin at times? You don't want to change what you do on a regular basis defensively. It can put you in a bad spot, doing things that you're not prepared for, things that you haven't practiced throughout the course of the season. But I think mixing things up here could be an option, and we may see the Bills do that with Bishop and Williams this week to try to combat that running game. All right, one more topic before we get out of here. Before we do, we'll thank our sponsor once more, Forefathers Organics in Dansville. At Forefathers Organics, their mission is to liberate, educate, and innovate with the highest quality CBD and hemp-derived products for your mind, body, and soul so you can live happy and free. Visit them at 87 Franklin Street in Dansville, online at forefathersorganics.com, or call them at 585-335-2223 to learn more about the products they offer. All right, my final thought on this broadcast is for all fans out there of both teams. If any Ravens fans are listening here, we have a few Bills fans listening. Toxic discourse around this game this week. Just disgusting stuff from both fan bases. I've seen, just to put it plainly, some disgusting imagery, some fabrication of player comments from both sides, and then, of course, the radio personality from Baltimore popping off at the mouth, as he is known to do throughout his infamous career out there. It's just grown to a disappointing level. I am certainly not one to stray away from controversy. I'm certainly not one to stray away from getting in the mix with opposing fan bases and doing a bit of trolling myself on social media. I find that to be quite fun, particularly with the Dolphins fan base. But I think in this case, it's just gone to a level that is really elementary and really disrespectful to some of the players. And not only that, the fan bases, the cities involved. The radio personality calling Buffalo a city of losers and trying to gain notoriety from that, I think, is just a disgraceful tactic. Something that I thought was reserved for 1980s shock jocks and people that really got out of the business a long time ago. I'm surprised that this radio personality is still around. I wonder if he travels with the team and he'll be on site this weekend. If so, I'm interested to see if he gets approached by anybody. Maybe he'll be in the concourse. I know that media has to walk through some fans to get down to the media room underneath. Not to say that I want anybody to accost him verbally or otherwise, just interested to see how Bills fans will kind of let him know their displeasure about his comments earlier this week. Last time he made these comments similar to this, Bills Mafia, as it typically does, responded with love, donating money to a charity in honor of something that his wife was dealing with. And I think he got quite emotional on the radio about it. And clearly that was phony, as well as many of the other aspects, seemingly, of this man's life. So I'm not sure we need to pay this man any more attention. Just let's let bygones be bygones. Kind of stay out of the fray this week as much as you can. Just pay attention to the coverage, pay attention to the things that are meaningful, block those that are not. Enjoy the week first and foremost. I think this is a week that needs to be enjoyed by both fan bases. It can, like I said, get a little bit toxic at this time of the season, but this is where you want to be as a fan base. This is where you want to be as a team. Let's enjoy it and not make it into a negative experience for everybody. These are the two best teams in the NFL, in my opinion, and it's my wholehearted belief that whichever team wins this game is more than good enough to beat the Chiefs. So that's going to do it for today's broadcast. Thank you for joining me on Right Here, Right Now. And we'll be back with another episode on Thursday, another one on Friday, another one on Saturday, and then one after the game on Sunday. So we'll see you the rest of the week.